Welcome aboard, shipmates. I'm Jerry Bryant, and I'll be your captain professor for this voyage on the Chantey Sea. This is episode 4 of the Shanty Talk series, in which I take a traditional shanty, which is a sailor's work song, and explain its origins, its uses, the context on board 19th century square riggers. In this episode, I'm going to introduce you to the sails of a square rigger using the pumping shanty called the Saucy Arabella, which is also known as Rolling Down the River. This song probably dates to the mid-1800s, as do many of our favorite shanties. And it's a perfect song for introducing or learning the names of all the sails on a clipper ship. You'll see why when we get into the verses. Now, even though the lyrics of this shanty are all about the sails, it wasn't used to handle sails. It was actually used for heaving work on the ship, like pumping the bilges or raising the anchor. It's easy to guess why the shantyman who wrote this song would have chosen the sails as his subject, because there's a lot of sails on a ship, and pumping was a long, hard job, usually done every day. And if it was a leaky ship, it could go on for hours. And so the shantyman had to keep the verses coming, and therefore naming all the sails was a kind of easy way to keep those verses rolling and keep the crew engaged. As a matter of fact, the song has a somewhat unusual double chorus as well, which would have helped string it out and make the song last as long as the work needed to be done. Now, to set our scene, here's a painting of sailors working an old-fashioned kind of bilge pump called a jiggity jig pump. And you see the men on either side of the lever, and they pumped it up and down, worked it up and down like a seesaw. So that's the rhythm that this song is designed to facilitate. So let's start out with the first verse and the chorus. Oh, the Arabella sets her big foresail, the Arabella sets her big foresail, the Arabella sets her big foresail, rolling down the river, rolling down, rolling down, rolling down the river, rolling down, said the bucko mate to the greaser's wife. Pumpkin pudding and a bulgine pie, pumpkin pudding and a bulgine pie, pumpkin pudding and a bulgine pie aboard the Arabella. Now, there are only a couple of obscure terms that I need to explain, and they're all in the chorus of this song. Bucko was a term used to describe a tough guy, and it was often applied to officers on a ship, usually the mates. It also carries a connotation of no nonsense and competence, but it shows up frequently in traditional shanties, both as an adjective and as a noun. Greaser was sailor slang for the second mate, but why the second mate's wife should show up in this shanty is a complete mystery. Merchant sailors at that time very rarely brought spouses on a trip. Stan Hugel, who collected or printed this shanty in his essential collection called Shanties from the Seven Seas, states that the terms in the second half of the chorus are definitive proof of this song's American origins. First, there's pumpkin pudding, which was a quintessential Yankee dessert in the 19th century, and it's basically pumpkin pie without a crust. And bulgine was African-American slang for a small railroad engine. These ran up and down the docks ferrying cargo. Now, I imagine that a bulgine pie wouldn't have been very appetizing. Each verse of the shanty names one sail. On a big clipper ship of the 1850s, there could have been as many as 40 sails. Now, I'm not going to subject you to all those verses, just enough to give you a sense of the sail plan of a square rigger. I'm going to use this drawing of a full-rigged ship as I go through the verses. Now, here's an important note. There are two types of sails on a ship like this: square sails and fore and aft sails. Yes, I know that the square sails aren't actually square, but they're called that because they were square to the masts. In other words, perpendicular to the masts. On a three-masted ship, all the square sails except the lower ones are named after the mast they are on. The masts are named foremast, mainmast, and mizzenmast. The lowest sails on each mast, known collectively as the courses, are called. If you want to sound like an able-bodied sea person, here's a little pronunciation guide for you. In all the names that end with the word sail, pronounce that as sol. So it would be like mainsail, foresail. The third sail from the deck on every mast is written as the topgallant sail, but it was actually pronounced topgansel, or sometimes just gansel or topgallant. This sail, which is the lowest sail on the mizzenmast, is pronounced krudgick. And then this sail is the royal, which is pronounced just like you'd expect it to be, except in the song. And the shantyman did that to make it scan. Now, of course, there's documentation that sailors from all different English-speaking cultures, the Australians, the British, the Canadians, the Americans, they all had different pronunciations for all these terms. So there's no real right and wrong here, so feel free to just do you. I'll let the verses speak for themselves from now on, and we'll admit the choruses so you don't have to sit here all day. Well, maybe just one more chorus because it's so much fun to sing. I'll do just the verses about the foremast. In real life, a shantyman would have kept coming up with verses until the mate told the crew that the job was over. I've already sung about the foresail, so I'm going to pick up the enumeration with a sail right above that one. Oh, the Arabella sets her fore topsail, the Arabella sets her fore topsail, the Arabella sets her fore topsail, rolling down the river, rolling down, rolling down, rolling down the river, rolling down, said the bucko mate to the greaser's wife. Pumpkin pudding and a bulgine pie, pumpkin pudding and a bulgine pie, pumpkin pudding and a bulgine pie aboard the Arabella. Oh, the Arabella sets her foregansel, the Arabella sets her foregansel, the Arabella sets her foregansel, rolling down the river. Oh, the Arabella sets her foreroyal, the Arabella sets her foreroyal, the Arabella sets her foreroyal, rolling down the river. Oh, the Arabella sets her fore skysail, the Arabella sets her fore skysail, the Arabella sets her fore skysail, rolling down the river. Oh, the Arabella sets her fore moonsail, the Arabella sets her fore moonsail, the Arabella sets her fore moonsail, rolling down the river. Well, that covers the square sails. The shantyman would sing about the sails on every mast, and then if the work still wasn't over, he'd start in on the fore and aft sails. Oh, the Arabella sets her fore topmast staysail, the Arabella sets her fore topmast staysail, the Arabella sets her fore topmast staysail, rolling down the river. Oh, the Arabella, she sets her jib, the Arabella, she sets her jib, the Arabella, she sets her jib, rolling down the river. Oh, the Arabella sets her flying jib, the Arabella sets her flying jib, the Arabella sets her flying jib, rolling down the river. Oh, the Arabella, she sets her spanker. The Arabella, she sets her spanker. The Arabella, she sets her spanker, rolling down the river. Okay, confession. I lied before. There actually are some more square sails. They are called this. But the sailors pronounce that word as stunsails. They're a little hard to see in our picture of the ship. The artist only shows them on the port side, but they're there. Here's a painting that shows the stunsails more clearly. These are the stunsails, and they're set on extensions of the yards on each mast, which are called booms. If you're familiar with the song Rolling Down to Old Maui, there's a line in it that goes, "Our stunsail booms is carried away," meaning that the wind was so strong that it broke them. Stunsails were set when the wind was just strong enough to fill them to give the ship a couple of extra knots of speed. Stunsails could be set on both sides of the ship, giving the shantyman a whole boatload of new verses if he needed them. Pun intended. Oh, the Arabella sets her port foretopmast stunsail. The Arabella sets her port foretopmast stunsail. The Arabella sets her port foretopmast stunsail, rolling down the river. You get the idea. Well, now you know enough about the sails of a square rigger to be a dreadful bore the next time you're out drinking with friends. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to keep the series going, so if you want to keep learning, do subscribe to the channel. You can do that by clicking on Ranzo, the concertina player right here. Compose a comment if you have a question or want to give me the gift of feedback. And if your Tupperware drawer is already organized, you can kill more time over on my website. A nice version of the Saucy Arabella is available on YouTube. Here's a link. And it's recorded by a group called Topgallants. Well, that's all for now. Hope to see you again soon.